And welcome on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Here, I am Mitch Spinell, along with Mitchell Balla, here to give you more on the local, statewide, and nationwide world of sports here on this show. Mitchell, thank you so much for joining me. We have a lot to talk about this week, coming back from this past weekend. And once again, thank you all so much for watching this show, wherever you may be seeing it. YouTube, obviously, that's our big platform. We've got now 3 episodes in, I believe, so we are getting things going there. We also have it on podcast networks such as Spotify and Anchor. Anchor is our distributor. They help us get the podcast out in video form. But if you want to listen to it on audio, you can also go to our SoundCloud as well. We can get you guys out there. Usually the SoundCloud will go out first before the video pod gets out to the masses. So once again, I'm very excited to be back with you, Mitch, talking more about the world of athletics. And we're going to start off local this week. I want to start off by talking about some high school golf, because that is one of the first sports that has kicked off the fall season. How well tuned, Mitch, and I know you said this before the show, but how well tuned are you into the world of golf?
I got to be honest with the listeners out there in the crowd, anybody watching on YouTube right now, I'm not a big golfer. I am a retired baseball player. I've tried golfing and it's nothing but ugly anytime I step on the course. Now, mini golf, Mitch, completely different story, but last time I checked, okay, high school does not, compete in mini golf. It's usually golf at some of the finer courses we have here in Stark and Tusk County and all around Northeast Ohio. But I know a little bit about golf, but I can't sit here and even act like I know everything about golf to the T, no pun intended.
Well, I did end up actually playing golf in high school, as well as some other sports, including baseball. And that has been more of what I'm in tune to in the last many years of my life. I've been able to play it very often, not as much as I used to, unfortunately, watch it frequently. And I've been keeping in tune with some of the local teams that have been competing this past week. There was the Quaker Boys Invitational, which I want to get to before our main topic, which was won by Dover's team. Dover had a very solid performance over at Oak Shadows. That was very, very impressive, posting, I believe, 305. And Dylan Gruelle obviously had a 72. I believe you can see it all on social networks, which, by the way, that's another thing, too. We are on the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, Big Time Sports. Whenever you look us up, Big Time Sports Ohio, that's our name. Everywhere. So everywhere, basically. Not TikTok yet. I don't think we have a TikTok or a Snapchat. I don't know yet. Yet. I was about to say, I don't know if I don't know, before we get to this topic, I don't know if the world is ready for a Mellotones, like going on to TikTok, finding a random song or a noise or whatever that they're calling there, like a sound, and then doing like a special dance to it. I don't think the world can personally handle that. And with that, I'm going to move on to the next topic. But we mentioned the Quaker Boys Invitational, obviously, this past week. And another team that's been very hot on the trail right now is Carrollton, who ended up winning their 3rd tournament in 3 tournament appearances early on in this year. This past week, they actually ended up winning at the Warrior Jaguar Classic in North Star down near Sunbury, which is a few hours away from you and I. And this is a team last year, the Warriors, who ended up being a very competitive team, ended up making it all the way to the state tournament at North Star. And I'm very curious as to see where they're going to go from here this coming fall, because you bring up a lot of the guys back. You brought Jackson Rinkes back, who had a 2 over 74 this past week. Caden Riniger, I believe, was at 79. You also had John Barong and Colton Moore come back, and Micah Barkin is a huge new addition to the Carrollton team as well. You see a team like 313, which I would probably say that's a pretty good score. Anytime you break 300 in a team match, especially for 18-hole tournaments, that's phenomenal. When you get to around 300 or so, it's like, yeah, those are the teams that'll be most competitive come postseason time. And I'm very curious as to see what Carrollton does, as well as what Highland has been able to do. Highland ended up finishing 7th with scores from Lucas Yoder, Nathan Klein, Jack Mast, and Camden Bill. And that's going to be another competitive team, especially in the IVC coming up here, which has always been a pretty good conference for local competitive high school golf on the boys and girls side.
I'm sure they could all beat me in golf. There's no doubt about it. And I will never even ask to attempt to play them. If anything, I might ask to get lessons from them, Mitch. But There's some pretty good golf down there in Tusk County, as there is up here in Stark County. And I know that as well as you do. So while you talk about your Tusk golf that you've been covering, I feel like we should give a little bit of shout out to some of the golf we had going on up here at Stark County at the same time. What do you think?
Well, who do you got?
So yesterday was the Boys and Girls Federal League Invitational at Elms Country Club. I've actually played at that course, so hopefully I didn't leave any big divots there that, would have altered anybody's score. Let's start with the girls first. We had Hallie Ellis from Hoover. She shot 74. She was the overall winner for North Canton Hoover. She medaled, was the winner for the girls yesterday. And then you look at Green's Kyle Smith before we get into the teams that won everything. Kyle Smith birdied 3 straight shots yesterday and shot a 66 at the Federal League Boys Golf Preseason Tournament. He medaled. He took home the overall honors, just single-handedly for him. When you go to look at the teams in general, though, yesterday, team scores for boys golf, Jackson placed first, shooting 300 as a team, which you just mentioned, the really good teams shoot around 300. And then if you go down to girls, I believe, although I'm still trying to find it, I just know that Hallie Ellis, shot, Hoover actually won the team title shooting 317, Lake a close second behind shooting 332. So pretty big gap there between first and second place. You're talking 15 strokes between the two teams, but that is one sport that, a lot of people think, right? Fall in Ohio. We know this is a football state, but there's a lot of other sports going on, Mitch. Not only are we going to talk golf and, cross country, we're also going to talk volleyball. Volleyball is a big sport here in Ohio, and those kind of sports are starting to ramp up as well. They'll get started here just a little later than football, but football's coming. But right now it's all golf, and it's awesome to see, golf get the spotlight right now, preseason wise. And then when it comes down to the end of the year, when it comes to tournaments for singles and, team tournaments, it gets really hot and contested in between where these teams from Stark County and Tusk County are going to go as they ultimately pursue their dream of a state championship for golf.
Absolutely. I mean, you have the teams you just mentioned there that are going to be very competitive for this upcoming season. And right now, we don't have a lot of high school action because a lot of the sports don't get going, especially the major team sports, until later in the season. But we will be keeping up with that. And you can also find many of our sports-centric articles on BigTimeSportsOhio.com. There is one that's going to be coming out today, I believe, on Indian Valley pitcher Mia Rose, who has officially committed now to Malone University. So congratulations to her. One of the top arms in all the Inter Valley Conference, if not all the state. A very competitive pitcher, and another talent that's going to be getting us an offer from, or a chance to keep playing at a school beyond high school. So with that, we will take a quick break. We will get more into some of the stuff on the professional side coming up next, including the Cleveland Guardians, who, as of this recording right now, are in first place in the American League Central. We'll come right back. But first,
when others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
Buying a home has never been so affordable with record low interest rates. Hartzler's Quality Housing is ready to put over 40 years of experience to work for you. Family owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's has a wide selection of model homes on site with a knowledgeable team to help make your new home a reality. Open 6 days a week. Visit them off I-77 in Dover or online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
And welcome back to the Big Time Sports Podcast show here. Mitch Spinell, Mitchell Balla here to talk more about the nationwide side of sports after we just got done with our conversation on high school golf here in Tuscarawas and Stark County, as well as kind of the general area. We also want to get into more of the baseball side of the conversation now, as we go into a Wednesday where the Cleveland Guardians are currently in first place in the American League Central, tied for first place with the Minnesota Twins after last night's 5-2 victory over the Detroit Tigers. Now, last night was one of the finer outings for Shane Bieber this season. Shane's been a little bit hit or miss so far this year, but 7 innings, only allowing 4 hits and 1 walk, along with 8 Ks against a not great Tigers lineup. Very solid. The bullpen had a little bit of a shaky grounding there at the end. You know, they had to bring in a guy for Eli Morgan to come in and you know, minimize the damage. But a win's a win, and you now have a couple of more games with Detroit until you get into a stretch that I definitely want to talk about with you, Mitch. The Cleveland Guardians right now are at 57-52 against a Twins squad that has kind of hit a bit of a plateau. I mean, they lost to the Dodgers last night, and then they're going to have pretty significant schedule here in the next month and a half or so before the season ends. Seeing where the schedule is right now for the Guardians as they come off of the trips to Detroit and then Toronto makes me nervous. Because there's a stretch during the middle of this month to, I want to say, about the early part to middle part of September, that makes me wonder if a young team like this, the youngest team on average in the league, younger than even some AAA clubs even, can really stick to a competitive mark. Because you look at the schedule, the streaks they're going to have here. They're going to have the Tigers for 2 more games this week. Then they're going to go over to Toronto, in which they won't lose much of the team. I believe James Karinchuk will be the only one that's going to be reserved from the COVID restrictions in Canada. So then you're going to have that. Then you go back to Cleveland, where you're going to face off with the Tigers again. Again, Tigers not a competitive squad, near the bottom of the AL Central. Here's where it gets interesting. August 19th, you start a 3-game set with the Chicago White Sox in your ballpark. That's fine. Then you got to go out to the West Coast starting August 23rd for a 2-game set against the San Diego Padres, one of the more competitive teams now, I would assume, post-deadline, even though we'll get to the fact that they've kind of struggled out of the gate with Juan Soto and the new additions. You also have, after that, August 25th, a 4-game road set with the Seattle Mariners, who have stood their own against the New York Yankees over the last few days, one of the top teams in baseball, and Seattle is like looking them in the face and not blinking much. Then you go over to August 30th. You have 2 games this month against Baltimore and 1 more on September 1st. Then the next day, a 3-game set with the Mariners at home. And then after that, it gets a little bit easier. You got the Royals, the Twins back in there. You have 2 big series against the Twins in September, which will likely decide the fate of the American League Central unless one of these teams falls off. When you hear that competition, Balla, do you think that is something that the Guardians will be able to sustain competitively? And by that time, we could see them not only remain with Minnesota in the race, but stay ahead of them in a sense.
The answer is yes. And here's why. If you would have told me back before the season started, granted a couple weeks late because of the lockout, that on August 10th, as we're recording this, I know it goes out in a couple days, the Cleveland Guardians would be sitting in first place. Would I take it? The answer is 1,000% yes. This is a team that I thought would be 500 all year. I did not know what this team was capable of, strictly because there were so many question marks, Mitch, as you headed into the season. Nobody knew who Steven Kwan was when the season started. The only person you really knew in the lineup was Jose Ramirez, Franmil Reyes, who's now a Chicago Cub after we DFA'd him, and the pitching staff, really. And today, as we sit here and record this episode for our audience, they are 57-52. They have 2 more versus Detroit. Listen, they have 29 more games versus Central Division opponents in a spot where they're going to have to pretty much win the Central to get into the playoffs. I know they're on the outside looking in right now when it comes to the wild card by a game.
Yeah.
You know how you avoid that? You win the games you need to win. But to your point, can this team withstand, quote unquote, the dog days of summer against really good baseball teams? And the reason I'm saying yes is because they have all year. They're the only team in the American League Central Division with a winning record versus teams above 500. Let that sink in. They are 28-24 against opposing teams with winning records this year. Nobody else in the American League Central Division is above 500 or even at 500. The next closest would be Minnesota, who's 30-34. But in order to do what they want to do, they have to take care of business like they did last night, right? Detroit, no business being on the same field as you. They're 43-68. They are last place in the Central, and I believe they're doing that for the third straight year, if not last place, second to last. You have to take care of the teams that you're better than. So Detroit, obviously, you're talking about 2 more being tonight and tomorrow, 4 next week in Cleveland. You play Chicago again. You still round out the end of the season with 6 games versus the Royals. And you have other teams in there like the Angels has some star power, the Rangers who are bad, the White Sox a couple more times. Their goal should be to win series. And I love that when we go to Toronto this weekend, assuming everything else holds up how it should be, you have your 3 best pitchers, at least would have been your 3 best pitchers all season long, starting those 3 games for you in Toronto. I believe it'll be Cal Quantrill Friday. It should be Tristan McKenzie on Saturday and then Shane Bieber on Sunday. I wouldn't want it any other way with this team going into Toronto against a team that is going to make the playoffs unless they fall apart. But this is what I love, right? We didn't expect this team to be here. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I don't know about you, Mitch. We didn't expect this team to be here.
I would have been hard pressed to predict the beginning of the year that Cleveland would remain competitive with the teams like the Twins and the White Sox seemingly making the jumps, although the White Sox are still kind of one of the more disappointing teams. Their odds makers are still picking them to win the division still, but there have been some recent developments that we'll get to later on that might throw that off completely, because you mentioned before 29 games against AL Central opponents left in the season. 21 of them will be against teams that are not the Twins. You have 8 games left against the Twins. One of the series is a 5-game series because you have a doubleheader that you had to make up from earlier in the season. That's the big one. I don't care I do care what happens in the other set, which I believe is in, if I'm not mistaken here, I believe this mega series is in Cleveland.
It is,
which is big. That's big. So, I mean, you look at the matchup that the Twins have with the Guardians from the September 9th to the 11th. That's obviously important as well, but I'm just thinking to myself, okay, you got to get at least 3 of 2 from that 5-game series. And depending on what happens the next few weeks, you might need to get more. And it's, I don't like relying on the wild card like you do, because I don't even think right now the Guardians they're in 5th place right now behind the 58-52 Baltimore Orioles, who are another team that is not blinking at this point in the season against some key teams, which is amazing considering the fact that, again, we talked about it on one of our previous episodes, and go listen to it on platforms you can listen to it. The Orioles, like the Guardians, didn't make many moves at the deadline, which that's a whole they sold Trey Mancini to Houston, and it just made people wonder like what's going on, but they're remaining. And again, the AL East is insane at this point. The Yankees are far and away the division winners. Toronto's in first in the wild card. Tampa Bay is third, with Seattle in second place right now. I think Seattle's pretty comfortable at this point. I'm not saying that they're guaranteed, because I would say this. They're a half game ahead of Baltimore for the second spot. If they get to that point at the beginning of next month, they got it. I think.
I agree.
Because you're going to have a team like Tampa Bay or Baltimore fighting for each other. Cleveland will be in there as well, or Minnesota, depending on who's in first and second.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Chicago in there. Maybe they can catch up. Boston's not catching up. Texas is not catching up. The Angels are not catching up. And those are some of the teams that the Guardians will have to take care of in order to make sure they can keep in the race. So I'm very curious as to what happens to the Guardians in that sense. When we get back, I want to touch on that White Sox point. That's a very important point to me, because so don't let me forget that. I want to get to where I think the team's season could kind of come to a close. Again, it's not guaranteed, but we'll see what happens there. And then we can also go around the league a little bit more. But first,
we all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
You asked for it and we listened. Buckeye Career Center is now offering Certified Nail Technician as an adult education program. This 216-hour course begins in November and will run Tuesday through Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. Learn manicures, pedicures, infection control, salon operations, and more. Other part-time certification courses starting this fall include phlebotomy and welding. Call 330-339-2288 to register or visit BuckeyeCareerCenter.org for more information.
And we're back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell, Mitchell Balla here to talk more about sports. We were just talking about the Guardians, and before we get into the conversation that I want to get into, Mitch, there were some notes that I kind of wanted to get out about Cleveland before we got into the next debate, because I did find a piece from Cleveland.com's Paul Hoynes. It's titled "Cleveland Guardians tied for first in AL Central, and it's not a surprise." So you can find that article. I believe it's pretty brand new on Cleveland.com. So it kind of focuses in on the fact that the Guardians are remaining competitive in the same way they've done it the entire season, in which they're not a very hard-hitting, slugging lineup, but they're able to kind of just get the ball in play and strike at the right points. He brought up some of the batting averages for guys like Stephen Kwan, who was batting 297, Ahmed Rosario, 290, Jose Ramirez, 284, rookie Oscar Gonzalez, 299, and of course your all-star second baseman Andres Jimenez, who is at 302. And the rotation has kind of looked like it's more of itself lately. You know, you got Bieber and McKenzie pitching lights out the last week. You even got guys like Cal Quantrill getting back into sturdier ground. Zach Plesac is still having his struggles. Obviously, I believe he's 10-2 on the season now. And a big part about tonight, you're getting one of your regular starters back, and Aaron Savali, I do believe. So you're going to get him back in the mix, and that's going to be huge for Cleveland. But I wanted to get more into what's going on around the league, because obviously the Guardians are competing against many other squads in the Central. We mentioned the Twins. They're not going away, it seems. And then you got the White Sox. There's a big development here that could easily throw off this AL Central race, because there was the development that Tim Anderson, the White Sox all-star shortstop, is going to be likely out 4 to 6 weeks with a torn ligament in his left finger. He's going to get surgery on that. The odds makers are still giving the White Sox odds to win the Central right now, but I'm wondering if this sort of funk, I said the word funk, that the White Sox have been in all season, if it's going to clear up, become late August, September, because I'm not sure it will at this point.
No, it won't. And here's the thing with odds makers in Las Vegas, or any sports book for that matter. I know they'll be in Ohio here eventually come 2023. They tend to take into account the roster, right? What names are, the type of projection you would expect younger players to show coming off the previous season, the typical numbers you'd expect to see from superstars, which the White Sox do have some superstars. They have a former MVP in Jose Abreu. Tim Anderson, like you said, one of the faces of baseball. They don't take into account who the head coach is. And Tony La Russa is the wrong man for any job in Major League Baseball right now out of any 32 teams in baseball. And it's nothing against La Russa personally. It is simply that he had been out of the game for a while. Mitch. Like, you can look around baseball and there's still older managers, right? Tito Francona, we know he's up there in age. There's some people that wonder how many more years is he going to be the head man in Cleveland. Tony La Russa took a long break after his stint with the St. Louis Cardinals. And not only did he come back after not coaching for a while, they put him with a very young team, a team that you have to take a step away from baseball and look at other sports. You see a lot of college basketball coaches retiring right now, some absolute legends, some expected like Coach K and unexpected like Jay Wright with Villanova, because of the times that are changing, right? You talk about NIL deals. These coaches aren't well-versed in that aspect, right? They don't know how to connect as well with younger players. And I think that this is a huge reason why the White Sox are struggling. Tony La Russa is so out of touch with that team that these young White Sox players just, they can't relate with him. And I'm not saying you have to be buddy-buddy, because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? We just saw Franmil Reyes, a player that hit the past 2 seasons, hit over 30-plus home runs for us, was designated for assignment, is now a Chicago Cub. But at the same time, you still have to have somewhat of a relationship with these players to get them to buy in and do what you want them to do. And you can point any which way you want to. You can point at players and health. You can point at Tony La Russa. You could point at they thought they were going to roll out onto the field and win because a lot of people picked them to win the Central in the preseason. It has been an utter disappointment. I thought the White Sox preseason were the team to win the American League Central. There was a lot of people who thought they could go to the World Series. When you look at some of the people in the rotation, you have Hendricks at the back end of the bullpen. That lineup, when healthy, is loaded. They have to be one of the most disappointing teams in all of baseball this year. And I will absolutely be stunned if Tony La Russa comes back next year as head coach of the Chicago White Sox. I think they need a shakeup in that dugout when it comes to coaches, and they also just need to stay healthy. But Mitch, I will admit if I'm wrong, but I'm going to sit here today and tell you I don't think the White Sox will make a run in this American League Central, because if they were going to, I believe they would have shown it already. And now without your best player, top 3 player on your roster, your shortstop out for 6 weeks, I don't see how they can do it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if La Russa, and this is kind of more of an extent on the kind of the sense that we haven't seen him kind of coach like very fiery so far this season. And I guess you could say maybe in his 2 years as White Sox manager, but now would be the perfect opportunity for him to become that sort of cantankerous, old man, so to say, that he could whip some of his players into a more competitive stance now, because it just sort of seems like they're going through the motions. Of course, we saw the sort of big joke video that surfaced a few weeks ago at this point, may have been a few days ago, where La Russa was caught on camera closing his eyes. And that was a whole thing where it's like old man catches a nap during a baseball. I'm not here to make judgments on that. I would think now would be the perfect opportunity if he really wanted to step up, if he really wanted to get this team going, to try and light a fire under his guys and say, hey, now the time is now. And if you don't get it done, if you don't even make the postseason a year after you looked like a hot competitor going in and just walking into a still competitive Houston Astros squad, I don't know. Time will tell what's going to happen to you in Chicago. And then, of course, you have what's going on in the National League. Right now, you mentioned it before the show, there are some slight struggles in San Diego post-trade deadline. The Padres, I think, were at one point where they were scoreless for 20-something odd innings. Last night, that changed, obviously, because Soto ended up hitting his first home run with the team. I believe Machado went yard as well.
He did.
I'm curious now, do you think that, because I remember saying it on the show, that the Padres right now could really look like, on paper, a team that could usurp the Dodgers as the top competitor in the not only the NL West but the National League. And now am I sitting here to say that, maybe I kind of overthought that to an extent, because right now they're not really taking over like I thought they would, and it's a little disappointing. I mean, you're still 16 games back of the LA, and I'm not expecting them to catch them all in 1 month. But you look at the wild card standings right now, and you're just seeing where they are. They're in third place, obviously, a game ahead of Milwaukee, who made some key moves at the trade deadline. I believe actually sending your closer to San Diego, which is fascinating. So now you might have to deal with potentially your old arm and Josh Hader potentially closing you out come the later months of September. And then you also have to deal with potentially San Francisco. San Francisco is probably not going to catch up at this point. I mean, but I still think they can be at least competitive and try to chip away at some of the Padres' stance in the division. But Atlanta and Philadelphia right now just kind of look like the teams that are running away with the wild card. And of course, you have the mighty Mets in first place right now, where the two New York squads obviously look like world beaters, even though the Yankees have more considerable problems, I think, right now than the Mets do.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, but I'll start back to the point where we were in the NL and San Diego. Granted, it's a small sample size. I'm not going to sit here and react and say, oh, it's a failure. On paper right now, lineup-wise, it has to be one of the best, if not the best in baseball. And they're 5-5 in their last 10, winning last night. And going out on a limb here, I thought Machado's home run last night may have been a walk-off, if not a go-ahead shot late in the game. They're not going to catch the Dodgers. You would need an epic collapse that we've never seen before, probably since the Red Sox, I believe, back in, what was that, 2011?
Yep.
When the epic collapse they had, you would need something like that to happen, and I don't see that happening with a team that's lost 33 games all season. The Padres better wake up and figure it out here quickly, Mitch, because like you said, they're only one game up in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee and San Diego flipped closers for each other, which is crazy because they're both 1-2 in saves in the NL. And I guess both teams thought, or the Padres at least thought, they needed a change of scenery for that closer at the time. They went out and got Josh Hader, who the Brewers weren't going to be able to re-sign eventually because of the money he's going to demand as a left-handed reliever on the market. Understandable. They got to be careful though. If they don't figure it out, and my whole thing with San Diego is they have some names in that rotation, but none of those names have produced the way they expected to when they signed or traded those prospects for those players. And I'm not saying Bob Melvin will get fired. A lot of people forget that Bob Melvin is now the head coach in San Diego. They traded for him from Oakland last offseason, so he won't get fired, but what an utter disappointment it would be if the Padres don't figure it out. Granted, Fernando Tatis Jr. is on his rehab assignment right now. I saw last night he had a double and triple in whatever minor league park he was in. So that's a huge boost. And you're talking about potentially the biggest three-headed monster in baseball when you talk Tatis, Soto, Machado coming back in a lineup. But I'm glad you brought up the Yankees, because the Yankees are another team that made some moves at the deadline, and they're kind of struggling right now, right? 3-7 in their last 10. Granted, still 10.5 up on Toronto. They are fine. But there's always this thing, and a lot of people that aren't diehard baseball fans don't realize this. The best team in baseball doesn't always win. Because if the best team in baseball always won, then the Cleveland Indians at the time would have won the World Series in 2017 when they had the best record in baseball. They peaked too early. Now, there's still a lot of baseball left. I'm not saying the New York Yankees have peaked too early, but at the same time, it's something you have to start to consider as you move down the home stretch here. I think it's all but inevitable they'll win the AL East, and they will more than likely have the number 1 seed in the American League, although Houston, tied with them in wins right now. It's part of the reason I'm so dead set, and I was still upset that the Guardians didn't make a move. The goal is just get into the postseason. October baseball is magical, but I do have my concerns with the Yankees, right? Stanton's already down. Stanton's been hurt. Judge, I'm not wishing it upon anybody, because I think episode 2, which folks can go back and listen to, I told you he's turning into almost must-see TV right now. Far and away the American League frontrunner for MVP. But you're talking about a guy that in years past is generally due for one IL stint per season, and it hasn't happened yet. I also thought it was pretty funny that they lost to the Cardinals the other night, 1-0 with Montgomery pitching against them, that they traded to St. Louis that ended up getting the win. I thought that was pretty ironic.
Yep.
I can't sit here and tell you I'm sold on the Yankees like I can with the LA Dodgers. In my opinion, the Dodgers are the best team in baseball right now. And I would, if I was a betting man and it was legal in Ohio, I would put money on the Dodgers. But the Yankees, I have question marks still. And then the Mets, Mitch, I'm going to be honest, I'm still waiting for them to pull a New York Mets, because we see this a lot. I know they're 72-39. They're 7 games up on the Braves in the NL East. They're going to make the playoffs unless something catastrophic happens. But if there's one team that would happen to have a catastrophic ending, it would be the New York Mets.
I'm aware of that. I know that, but This team is still really, really good, and that pitching is unlike anything that I can think of in a National League team right now, and that includes teams like the Dodgers and the Padres. I mean, Carrasco's having a heck of a rebound season. You got Chris Bassett, who's doing well. You also got Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom coming back up from their injuries. That's really tough to take on, especially when it comes October, because I'm saying when, not if, when it comes to the Mets right now. That's really difficult. I think that at this point, I think only the West can really compete with the National League. The Central's not doing anything this year. The Cardinals, the Brewers, respect to them, they're not doing anything. They're going to get bounced in the first round probably. But I am very curious to see where that goes. So we'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll talk more about some recent comments that Cavs guard Darius Garland had with the Cavs' upcoming season. But first...
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
Where you matter. You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care. Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
When others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
And welcome back to another segment of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell and Mitchell Balla here to talk more about sports. Just got done talking about some baseball. Want to go over to basketball now because there was a clip that we didn't get to from a few weeks ago, Mitch, that I wanted to get into because I believe it was Cavs guard Darius Garland on, let me see here, the Varsity House podcast. It was obviously the Cavaliers. We haven't talked about them at all this whole time of the show, so we want to get into them because it's off season. But I'm very curious as to where the team goes this year because they were in 9th place in the league last year, made a huge jump up from the 22 wins, I believe, the previous year to 44. Now, obviously, they lose in the play-in tournament to Brooklyn and Atlanta, so they miss out on the traditional playoffs. But you get the main core you get the main core back from that last year. You get Colin Sexton in there as well, back from his recent injury, and you also get some new draft pieces that could easily become good role players in the near future. So Darius Garland had some recent comments on the Varsity House podcast in which he said the team wasn't satisfied from what their result was last year, and that he believes that the Cavaliers can reach the Eastern Conference Finals this season. He said, quote, "I think we make the Eastern Conference Finals," unquote. Just trying to make sure. That's on the Varsity House podcast. I will try to leave a link in the description if I remember to do so. I mean, it's a good bout of confidence, I think, from a guy like Garland, who is very much becoming into his own. He's just he made an all-star team for the first time this past year, and the Cavaliers really took some people into some serious notice, I believe. I was around the all-star break, which was in Cleveland last year. There were people that were like saying, "Yo, this Cavs team is actually not bad this year. The Cavs got some good pieces," and they proved that last year by getting some big wins once the calendar year turned. I believe they got the huge win over Milwaukee during that time at home, where they looked very impressive. And even though they kind of struggled with some injuries and lesser play throughout the remainder of the year, I'm more in agreement towards the idea of the Cavaliers making the conference finals this year because of where the East, which will still be competitive next year, where the East could end up, because you're going to have teams like Boston probably back. You're going to have your Miami Heats in there as well. Philadelphia will be interesting, but what's going to happen to Brooklyn? What other team is really going to step up? Milwaukee, Milwaukee, I got to say, obviously, as well. But if you put the Cavaliers in the top 5 potential contenders for the Eastern Conference this year, I wouldn't disagree with that, and I could easily see that happening. Give me your thoughts, Balla.
I 100% agree. If you put this team in the top 5 in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference right now, whether people want to agree, you have a fighting argument, no doubt about it, right? I think you have your top 3 teams in the East in Boston, Miami, and Milwaukee, because Milwaukee still has Giannis. And then after that, I won't make the argument, but you have some people out there that would make the argument, oh, it's Philly, right? Philly's got Joel Embiid, they got James Harden. You don't know what's going to happen with Brooklyn. So if we're talking about as it stands right now, Kyrie and KD are still in the roster, off sheer talent and the results we saw last year in the play-in tournament, you put them above Cleveland. So the Cavs are right around 5 or 6, depending on if the Nets blow up, which we haven't even talked about that yet in our episodes yet. And that might be a different episode, down the line. But KD yesterday telling the owner, it's either me or the head coach and general manager.
Yep.
Even though Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving did pick the head coach, they've come out and said that, which is crazy. But that's not the conversation we're having. This team with another year under their belt, adding someone like Anunoby, but OJ Abaji from Kansas.
OJ Abaji, yep.
That fits a need that they needed, right? Obviously, we needed a bigger 3. Isaac Okoro, a little too undersized to play that position. I'm personally not a fan of him. Lauri Markkanen, maybe too big for that position, as we saw at times when you had to guard the likes of Kevin Durant or Giannis at times, or Jason Tatum. But there's a couple pieces, and more things could still shake out. You've offered Colin Sexton a contract that he doesn't like. You can bring Karis LeVert back. I mean, there's a lot of interchangeable pieces with this team, but the core is going to stay the same. And I love it, because for the first time, really since we had LeBron James' first tenure in Cleveland, we are building this from the ground up. And it's been almost an entire thing. I mean, even when you go back to LeBron in Cleveland the first time, you traded for, veterans at the end of the career, like Wally Zerbiak. Mo Williams, you traded for from Milwaukee. I'm trying to think. There was a plethora of guys you traded for. You've signed somebody like Jamario Moon, but this team is so young. They are so fun. And I just hope that the expectations doesn't hurt this team, as we're very accustomed to as Cleveland fans in general. But Mitch, I have no problem sitting here with you today actually telling you, now that I thought about it, they are in the top 5 in the Eastern Conference, because when this team is healthy, I will take them over the Philadelphia 76ers, because I think the Sixers are nothing but Joel Embiid. I think Harden is washed. I will say it. Doc Rivers is notorious for choking series leads. I believe he's choked the most 3-1 leads in the playoffs before. So I'm just not a buyer of the 76ers, and the Nets, if they blow up, you're talking about the Cavs being the 4th best team in the East on paper.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's going to happen if many more NBA pundits decide to put the Cavaliers in like the 5 or the 7 biggest contenders for the East this year. Where does that leave teams like that have kind of made some runs in the playoffs the last few seasons? Where does that leave teams like Atlanta in the mix, or potentially teams? We mentioned Miami before. Obviously, made that finals run in the bubble a few years ago. Boston will be interesting. I don't know if they're going to be as good as they were this past season, where they had a huge second half and made the finals.
Toronto
is an interesting team. Chicago's going to be scary. Yeah. I think Chicago's going to be more scary than I think they were at a point last season where I was scared of them until I wasn't. I don't know. I don't think the Cavs win the division either. I think this is going to be Milwaukee's year still, but I do think the Cavaliers within 2 years could become the Central Division champions. And really, at this rate, the division titles in the NBA now become so pointless, more than the AFC, NFC division titles or Major League Baseball's American League National League. It's basically like, okay, you win the conference. You don't even win the conference, basically. You're first in the conference, and then you got to win the postseason to get to the finals. So it really is being rendered pointless now in the NBA. So when we come on back, we'll get into some of the other stories that we didn't get to either this past weekend or we can get to here. I'll let you kind of go through that, Mitch, and see what you want to get into more of. So we'll get back after this break. First,
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the fairest deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
If you're purchasing a new home, the team at Hartzler's Quality Housing is here to help. Take advantage of record low interest rates to make your new home a reality. Locally owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's Quality Housing has the experience to guide you through the process. You'll find a wide selection of model homes on site to fit any budget. Open 6 days a week just off I-77. You can also visit them online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
Hard work is something you're accustomed to. Van Nostrand Young understands that principle. Our access is achieved with organizations like Grange Insurance. Safety and prevention specialists utilize our VanCan assessments process to ensure that you and your colleagues are in the best hands. You want the safest environment for your business, and we can guide you there.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
And welcome back to our final segment of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell, Mitchell Balla here, talking more about. This is more of a wild card segment because we're getting to the stories that we didn't get to from this past weekend or from this week. There is one, Mitch, that I want to talk to you about. So I don't know if you recall from this past weekend, but the Guardians organization, actually made a move regarding one of its key members. So the hot dog race that happens at the Guardians games this year, and I can't believe we're actually talking, I'm actually going to bring this up, but all the races this year have been won by either ketchup or onion at the races. There has been 0 wins from the racer known as Mustard, the guy who runs in the mustard costume. And as we can see, Mitchell Balla is an unfortunate rider on the mustard bandwagon.
Hate
that
mustard.
Is unfortunate.
Hate mustard.
Oh, you hate? Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No, I'm happy Mustard's winless, but please, back to your point.
Oh, okay. See, I got confused there because from what I forgot we mentioned, I think during one of the shows that I think that Mustard sucks, and it does. Yep. But this was at the Lake County Captains game. I believe they do this. This might be a yearly thing. I'm not exactly sure, but this was a real event that happened at the Lake County Captains minor league affiliate game for the Guardians last night, I believe. This was the call from John Vicari of the game.
Mustard against the fish taco, against the hard shell taco, against the soft shell taco. Mustard is from the Cleveland Guardians, getting to the motion
I'm going to skip
yesterday.
this real quick.
Plate looks back at his competition. The tacos are coming up behind him. Fish taco and the hard shell taco are now beating him up. Mustard somehow fends them all off. All the tacos are on the ground. Mustard looks around. He will sprint towards the final stretch, going towards in front of the dugout, and he will cross. Mustard gets the W. Even if it's here, not a Progressive Field, it is the first win for Mustard this season. He gets it at the high A level, and that might be the confidence that Mustard needs going forward.
All right, that's again John Vicari's call from the Lee County Captains game last night. Mustard wins his first victory at the hot dog race against a fish taco and a a beef taco and whatever tacos they have. I'm done. I'm done. I'm in the same mindset as I was last week regarding the air guitaring. I'm going to end my disdain for this story. Congratulations to Mustard. Congratulations to the man wearing a mustard costume.
No.
I hope you got paid well to run across the field and beat tacos. Hopefully you can build up your game, and now you can go beat other people dressed as hot dogs.
Yep. No congrats needed. It's a Mickey Mouse win for Mustard. Couldn't even win in his own, really food. When you talk about hot dog racing, had to drop down to tacos. That's low by Mustard. I believe there was even sources out.
Don't call tacos low class, man.
No. I'm just saying, he's raced against hot dogs his entire career. Now he's racing against tacos. I personally love tacos. I'm just saying, it's just not really, you can't compare that. And that, to me, it's just, where's the integrity? The integrity, I saw there were some sources saying that Mustard may have actually, gotten rid of Soft Taco during that race, maybe tripped Soft Taco. So just an awful job by Mustard. You have to cheat to win. No wonder you're 0-25 this year at Progressive Field. And it just ultimately shows everybody out there that mustard is not a good condiment. Ketchup is superior over mustard, and onion is phenomenal with a hot dog as well. So all you people that are out there hoping Mustard wins, for me, I hope he doesn't even get the September call up. I don't want to see him again.
Why did I think you were going to say that Mustard, there was a report that he was on performance enhancers?
I don't know, but maybe there is. Are you telling me something I don't know here?
I cannot confirm nor deny anything. All I'm going to say is that mustard might have had a extra ingredient in it that we're not allowed to discuss on the show. Because we have to remain objective. So anyway, I was going to say, that was our stupid story from this past week, because that's the huge thing in Cleveland right now. I was up there yesterday and everyone's talking about, put it in your updates. I'm like, why would I ever put this in my updates? Just because nothing was going on besides the game. But otherwise, there were some stories on your list, Mitch, that you wanted to get to, and I was kind of going through them. Are there any specifics that come to mind? I mean, I know you mentioned Serena Williams. You mentioned some other things. The Little League World Series, for example. Yep. Anything that you want to talk about?
Well, let's get some quick hitters here. We'll honor, Serena Williams last. Give her the proper send-off she deserves. But
sure.
Staying in the baseball realm, Mitch, former All-Star pitcher. He has not been an All-Star the past couple of years. And ace of the Boston Red Sox fell off his bike and is now on the injured list. This is a pitcher that 2 seasons ago signed a 5-year, $145 million contract with the Boston Red Sox. He is making $30 million in 2022 alone. And since the start of 2021, he has appeared in 11 games, 5-2 record, 3.17 ERA in 48 and a third pitch, 57 strikeouts to 13 walks. For a pitcher making $30 million a year, Mitch, that's tragic. What's more embarrassing, the fact the Red Sox gave him that contract, or the fact that Chris Sale can't ride a bike?
I can't say he can't ride a bike. I've seen plenty of people who can ride bikes get into accidents. It's just unfortunate that you have this injury occur when you're already having to come off another injury, and now it's season ending. The Red Sox aren't officially out of it yet, but I don't think they're going to make any ground in the wild card race, let alone the AL East. It sucks, especially for him, considering the fact that when he signed that contract, I believe it was actually in 2019 when he signed that deal, it was for 5 years, that he was the ace left-hander coming off of the Red Sox most recent World Series win. He was at late pickup from Chicago, and you kind of thought, this is their guy. He's going to help him ride out some more championship opportunities. Then he gets the Tommy John surgery after 2020, or the season-ending injury in 2020, misses most of 2021, and this year they tried to make it happen, and it just didn't quite work out. So it's very unfortunate. And of course, you have the $27 million fifth-year option coming up here soon, so we'll see if he picks that up, and if Boston has to kind of pay the price for that one, which indeed is $27 million. There was also in baseball, we wanted to go kind of on the younger side, since the Little League World Series. I believe the qualifiers are going on right now. Is that correct? We're not actually at Williamsport. Okay,
not yet.
So yeah, I remember watching the Little League World Series much more as a kid than I do now. It's a nice little thing that they've done some things in the past that baseball kind of caught on in recent years, like adding a little more style and flavor to like the personalities of the kids and stuff. They have a little more fun with them. They obviously did the audio on-field audio much earlier than Major League Baseball did, specifically when coaches go out to the pitcher's mound, which, by the way, that's another thing too. I cannot believe in all the years, because they know they're on TV, we've never had a coach just absolutely tear into some poor kid. Like, I'm sure many of my friends, including myself, probably got at some point in Little League, maybe from one of our own fathers, but we're not going to get into that. We obviously wanted to get into the video that went viral this week. I don't know what the teams were exactly, but the kid got hit with the fastball. It was near the head. It actually just clipped his helmet, but it could have been a lot worse. And then the pitcher kind of went and consoled him a little bit. I mean, it's obviously good sportsmanship. I mean, it's not like a lot of things you would see in typical sport, but I find that to be very common more in the youth sports, where you're still under the guise of your parents. You're kind of instilled with these sort of morals and good values, hopefully, when you're young. And then you see stuff like that happen where you wouldn't see that if it was the adults playing against each other.
Buckle up, because I'm going to sound like get off my lawn man.
Okay.
First off, to your point, it was Texas and Oklahoma in the game. It was Caden Shelton of Pearland, Texas, the pitcher, facing Isaiah Jarvis of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Jarvis was the one that got hit in the head. Mm-hmm. I am all for sportsmanship. Humble brag, I actually won a sportsmanship award in high school. But I am so sick and tired of this over-glorified sportsmanship. Why are you going to give the pitcher a hug because he's crying because he hit you in the head? You have that dude on the ropes. It's the first inning, bases loaded, and you're giving him a hug. And, oh my gosh, don't even get me started about the kids that give up the farthest home run ever hit in Little League World Series, and they stand at third base like they're a coach giving the kid a high five. Like, no, dude, get back on the mound and figure out why you just gave up a 300-foot home run to a 12-year-old. I'm all for sportsmanship, but this kid just took me yard and we just got eliminated in regionals. I'm going to give him a high five. Like, no, dude, no. It's because there's cameras in front of him. To your point, I'm shocked we haven't had a coach rip into somebody. The coach is probably like, oh, go make us look good, even though we're losing 10-0 right now, and go shake their hands after they just took you deep to put up for the second grand slam in the third inning. I'm so sick and tired of it. It is so over-glorified. It is not sportsmanship. It's called being too nice. That's what it is. When you hear anybody throughout life, I don't care if it's when you're talking to a girl, when you're doing something for a job in a sport, they're being too nice, and I'm sick and tired of it. You shake hands after the game. When I coach, I tell a player after a game on the opposing team, hey, great game. I'm not stopping the game in the middle of the game to go up to a guy that just had a 3-run homer and say, hey, great job, man. Looking at my pitcher acting like he's not good. It's just, I'm so sick and tired of it.
Okay, the home run thing is one thing, because I can understand, especially if you're the coach or a father of the kid who gave up the home run, you kind of don't want to see them be so passive that they do that, even though it is a sign of respect. I get that. I think in this case, this kid, like when you're a kid and you have a significant hit by pitch like that, it's not only going to probably hurt like hell, but it's going to be sort of those things where it kind of scares you. Like, I can legitimately remember kids in Little League getting scared because they would have to face off against a really fast throwing pitcher. And if you get beamed by him by one of those throws, you're probably not going to play baseball for another week. So I can understand, but I can see, and you weren't the only person that I saw on Twitter yesterday kind of talking about this sort of perspective. I think some of them were kind of doing it for the joke, but other ones might have been like, oh, creating a bunch of softies over here. I don't know. I slightly disagree in that sense, but I think there is something to not being too passive in competition. I can understand that, and I do agree in that way.
Well, listen, Little League World Series is fun, though. There's no doubt about it. I will always watch the Little League World Series, and I love whenever Ohio is able to represent the Great Lakes region. I'm not even sure how that region's playing out right now, if Ohio's going to have a team or not. But staying in baseball for one more topic, Mitch, let's talk about another baseball league at this same age, the 12U National Championships. Now, some people are saying, well, what's the difference? Little League World Series has certain rules you have to follow in terms of base paths. pitch distance, bat size, and barrel size. You cannot steal till the ball crosses home plate. The 12 USSSA baseball team I'm talking about right now, pretty much, to my knowledge, plays like high school baseball and college and pro baseball, leadoff steals. But the 12U USA baseball team actually won the world championship over Venezuela the other day. And Mitch, I told you before the show, I'm going to just find the video to send to you, and I'll also hopefully be able to put that link. If you watch these kids play baseball, I'd be willing to they could probably play up against high school kids and beat them, because these kids did not look 12 years old. They looked like they had the most swagger I've ever seen a 12-year-old have, and they looked legit, and it was so cool to see.
Really?
Yes.
That seems surprising. I mean, I'll have to go check out the video myself, but 12-year-olds compared to 15 and 18-year-olds.
I won't say like seniors, but yeah, 15. I think there's no doubt about it. You could get that team, and they would compete against some of the best freshmen, sophomores in the area, almost wherever. That might be one of the hottest takes you're going to get out of me in the first 4 episodes, but this team was awesome. I wish I would have known when they were playing. I would have watched them a little more, but something to definitely check out. In the hype video, you would have thought it was professional hype video for the World Series, the way it was made. But these kids are legit, and it was awesome to see. And hey, national champs.
Yeah. I mean, congratulations on them. I did look up the matchups for the Great Lakes region in Little League World Series. So Ohio is 1-1 in the Great Lakes bracket. They play tonight against Kentucky, and Kentucky already beat Ohio in pool play 7-6. So I believe it's double elimination. If Ohio loses tonight, they're out. But if they win, they go and play Indiana, and I believe it's the championship final on Thursday. So I guess whoever wins that will go on to Williamsport as the representative,
I believe.
But I don't know if Indiana has lost yet. So they've won 2 games. What is it, a double elimination thing where they have to beat? Okay, so Ohio would have to beat Indiana twice in order to make it, so because they already lost. Which that's interesting.
A lot to ask for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a tough one for them, but hopefully our state can be represented there. And as far as what city that the team is from, I couldn't tell you. So finally, we mentioned before, Serena Williams is officially retiring now at the age of 41 after many decades as one of the top tennis players in the world. I mean, one of the most successful athletic careers, man or woman, any sport played in history. That is it. 23 Grand Slam titles, number 1 for however many weeks and months and years she was.
319 consecutive weeks was she number 1, including a joint record 186 consecutive weeks, where she would then she then finished number 1 at the end of the year 5 straight times.
I take it that's like a record of some sort. Like,
you're talking about the GOAT, and this one I don't think people can really argue.
I mean, you look at some of the accomplishments she was able to rack up, all the wins. We mentioned the Grand Slam titles, kind of changing the landscape of women's tennis. I mean, obviously, her and her older sister Venus were coming up around similar times, and they came from a very unusual background when their father, Richard Williams, kind of, molded them into what they would eventually become. But they eventually became their own players, and 2 of the most successful careers. And it's amazing to see that Venus's career is seen as this major success. You win all these titles, you're able to do everything, and then that only is surpassed by the unbelievable run that Serena makes. It's kind of fascinating, and it is interesting to see where she'll go from here. I mean, she I think she mentioned it in her piece with Vogue, I believe. It's like she's evolved beyond the sport of tennis, which I don't really know where you go from beyond tennis. I mean, you can go into business. I believe they obviously have business ventures and professional sports franchises and other businesses. But it'll be interesting to see where she goes. It'll be interesting to see how time will hold up such a successful athlete. I mean, we're still going to consider her the greatest of all time. Is someone going to come in 10, 20 years from now and match the same ways? Probably not. And that's going to be a testament to how dominant and how talented she was.
I would ask the audience if they have time to hop on Google and look up Serena Williams and then go to the awards section. Because if we wanted to touch on all her awards, we would probably need a whole another hour show. She not only has the 23 Grand Slam titles, like we said, 319 consecutive weeks as the world number one, she has to also be the most decorated tennis player in women's tennis of all time, and it's not even close. I'm sitting here looking at these awards right now, Mitch, and it's the amount of times she's won the same award over and over is incredible. And just numerous different types of awards, from press to magazines to media outlets to wherever it may be. By far, in my opinion, and I know a lot of other people's opinions, the GOAT, the greatest of all time when it comes to women's tennis. And to your point, I don't think we're going to see anybody like her anytime soon. And if we do, it'd have to be at least another 40 years down the road. But Mitch.
Yeah, you mentioned 20.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to mention some of the accomplishments. 23 Grand Slam titles is actually second all time behind Margaret Court. You also have many other victories in like the Grand Slam Cup, the Tour Finals, the Olympics in 2012. You also have a bunch of doubles wins, which I presume mostly were with her sister.
Correct.
However many wins she got at the Olympics, many golds in Sydney, Beijing, and London. Just however many weeks you said at number one. Career fifth all time in career titles, 73. I mean, first in all time prize money rankings. She's raked in nearly $100 million in prize money alone from these tournaments, and that it's really something else. I mean, to be able to last that long and to be that dominant for so long is quite an accomplishment.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I know we're wrapping up the show here, and I know we want to talk about our future show, but there is one thing we didn't touch on, and we're not even going to touch on all of it concerning this team, because I've really liked the pace of this episode that we've gone, and it's given us a nice mental break. But out of Berea, we did see wide receiver Jakeem Grant go down yesterday, season-ending Achilles tear. Not only is our wide receiver room already depleted and very thin, you lose a guy that was ultimately going to be the best thing we've had since Josh Cribbs in the return game, which we have been lacking since the last time Josh Cribbs touched a football on special teams. We're not even going to talk about the elephant in the room in Berea between the quarterback and the off-field things. We touched on Kareem Hunt last episode. The Browns have denied his trade request, so that's where we are right now. But what do the Browns do with Jakeem Grant now? Where do they go from here? Not what do they do with him? He signed a multi-year deal. Are you like me? This is a team that has to go out and find some wide receivers now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know who you could go after at this point, especially this late in the training camp and in the preseason.
Will Fuller and T.Y. Hilton are two names that come to mind when you think of just guys that the name around the National Football League.
I like Fuller more than I like Hilton,
Agreed.
But Hilton could be an option as well. But yeah, there wasn't much going on other than the Grant injury, which obviously is terrible. We'll see what happens with the decision, which I believe will probably come early next week.
Yeah.
Because I believe the Browns did just announce that Watson will be the starter for Friday's preseason opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Correct.
Who will be playing their second game after they played in the Hall of Fame game this past week. So we got that. We also want to touch on, right before the show ends, to make sure to look out for some of our more recent episodes in the next week and a half, because we will be having some of our first special guests be rolling in right in time for a certain season to be starting. And Mitch, we talked about it off the air. I'm very, very excited to touch base with the people that we're bringing in, and we'll ask them a number of questions that I'm sure the fans will be interested in, and hopefully we can get it out to you as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Listen, they're scheduled, but they are coaches. Their schedule always changes. So you're just going to have to stay locked into wherever you listen to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show to see which guests Mitch and I are going to have on, which football coaches we are going to have on. And we're going to have some fun with them, just getting to know them a little more for you, the audience, as well as preview where their team sits at before kickoff, which, believe it or not, when you're listening to this episode, we are 1 week away from high school football kicking off. Mitch, I am so excited. I know you're excited because we're going to be doing some things for Big Time Sports when it comes to football, as well as, volleyball and other fall sports. But football being back in Ohio, especially at the high school level, man, I'm excited.
It'll be a good time. So with that, we want to thank you for watching and listening to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Obviously, you can listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Obviously, subscribe and like on YouTube. And be sure to like us on Facebook, Big Time Sports Ohio. You also got us on Twitter and Instagram as well. And go to our website, BigTimeSportsOhio.com. Do you have, Mitch, your special fact of the day that we want to get to before the show ends?
I sure do. It is
Let's hear it.
physically impossible for pigs to look up into the sky.
No, it's not. Yes, it is. What? No, it's not.
To
Come
lift,
on.
to actually physically look up into the sky.
I mean, I guess, but like, first of all, I've seen pigs like turn over, so I'm sure they can actually like look at it for like half a second.
Yeah, but people,
all right.
people
from,
think
from all fours, I'll get that. I get that.
All right, let's see if you got a clutch gene.
Let's see if let me see if I get. Headphones always mess me up, and I'm shooting at a 35-degree angle. No, 50-degree angle. I'm trying to bank it off the wall. All right, not even close. Goodbye.